All right, good evening. Before we start, the City Council just met on 2 closed session items, and there is nothing to report out at this time. So good evening, and thank you for viewing the August 7th meeting of the Arcata City Council. The City Council meeting is being held as a hybrid meeting with both in-person attendance and teleconference access via Zoom. Before we start, we'll start out with the land acknowledgement. The City of Arcata acknowledges that the lands we are located on are the unceded ancestral lands of the Wiyot tribe. The land that Arcata rests on is known in the Wiyot language as Gudini, meaning over in the woods or among the redwoods. Past actions by local, state, and federal governments removed the Wiyot and other indigenous peoples from the land and threatened to destroy their cultural practices. The City of Arcata acknowledges the Wiyot community, their elders both past and present, as well as future generations. This acknowledgement seeks to aid in dismantling the legacy narratives of settler colonialism. If you would like to, please join me for the flag salute. Will the city clerk please call roll?
Mayor Matthews?
Here.
Vice Mayor Stillman?
Present.
Councilmember Schaefer?
Here.
Councilmember Atkins Salazar?
Here.
Councilmember White is absent, but we do have a quorum.
Okay, we'll start with ceremonial matters. And this is the certificate of appreciation for Michael Winkler for his 9 years of dedication to graffiti removal in the city of Arcata. The City of Arcata hereby recognizes Michael Winkler for his unwavering dedication and invaluable contribution to beautifying our city through consistent and diligent graffiti removal over the past 9 years. Starting in 2015, when Michael was mayor of Arcata, he began removing graffiti and stickers from public and some private spaces in response to residents' concern and the visual blight he observed while walking and biking through town. His efforts have grown over the years, and he has donated hundreds of hours to this work and has encouraged others to join him. His consistent efforts have reduced the spreading and repeat nature that often stem from graffiti, and his quick action to remove offensive graffiti in less than a day supports the city in sending the message that hate is not tolerated in Arcata. We are deeply grateful for your hard work and the positive impact that you have made on our community. Signed by me, Mayor Matthews, on August 7th.
Well, I want to thank the City Council and soon-to-be outgoing Mayor, or City Manager Karen Deemer for recognizing and supporting my increasingly successful efforts to eliminate graffiti in Arcata. As the resolution says, I started in 2015 when I was Mayor of Arcata. I was bothered by the increasing amount of graffiti and stickers that I saw, and I was specifically bothered by the defacing of a mural that was behind the former Arcata shoe shop, which I thought was a great mural and was being defaced. Basically, I agree with the broken windows theory of policing, that tolerating trash, graffiti, and degraded, unkempt property shows that we just don't care and creates an atmosphere that feels unwelcome and unsafe and contributes to negative behavior such as graffiti and other bad behavior. I started small, just removing graffiti from one mural, but I gradually expanded to remove graffiti and stickers throughout downtown and expanded to more and more areas of Arcata. Obviously it became a passion of mine, and I now routinely carry all my supplies and anti-graffiti equipment in my backpack and remove graffiti wherever I go in Arcata. I regularly patrol specific routes through Arcata, walking and bicycling, and I focus especially on finding and eliminate large-scale areas of graffiti. I now thoroughly understand graffiti psychology, and I apply it to consistently discourage and defeat the graffiti vandals, one step ahead of them. And I've become an expert on removal techniques and materials and equipment And this year I've started to focus not only on removal but restoration, and full restoration, and even exact color matching on buildings that I repaint, make it all invisible. My ultimate goals are to eliminate all long-term graffiti, and goes so far as to destroy the entire Arcata graffiti subculture. And long-term, just for us to do rapid spot elimination of any graffiti that still occurs. And I also want to thank the anti-graffiti volunteers, Paula Proctor and Serena Delashmut, and George Zeminski, a tremendous long-term friend of the Arcata Marsh and also graffiti remover. And also help that I'm getting from the Arcata ambassadors and the great work that they do in making us a safer and more attractive city. And finally, Police Sergeant Heidi Grossman, who is the liaison for the anti-graffiti volunteers. So I will stay up here because I'm going to be
Yes.
on the agenda.
Thank you so much, Michael. I just appreciate seeing you all around town. I know you're getting into great shape, too.
Years, so I was not heavy to begin with, but I'm in top-notch shape now.
There you go. And so now that you're up there, can we please receive a report from the Energy Committee on your annual report?
Well, one major emphasis of the Energy Committee has been the all-electric initiative, which would have been to require that all new construction be all-electric. But unfortunately, with City of Berkeley being the test case, the federal court ruled that that law was an attempt to preempt the federal law, and so was not allowed. So even though our city staff has spent a lot of effort on this initiative, we are not able to put it into effect because of legal restrictions. But what we have done, though, as a committee and with staff, is to work for other measures that we can take that can achieve some of the goals that we had for the all-electric initiative. An important part of that is doing things like putting more solar on city buildings, like the D Street Neighborhood Center, and also putting in electric substitutes for natural gas equipment in city facilities, and doing that as a long-term effort. And we're also, as a committee and as staff, working with doing liaisons with other organizations, such as the Energy Conservation Assistance, and working with RCA on for doing electric vehicles charging stations in Carlson Park, also putting in heat pump water heaters in city facilities in place of natural gas water heaters, and working with RCA on the ARPA allocation of money that's available for climate change. Let's see. Another activity of the committee has been to work with the Tabitha, the finance director of the city, that they had us look into a number of possible measures, some of this which were energy related, as ways of raising additional money for the city. Eventually, the city council and the finance director settled on a proposed tax increase, and that's something that I worked on personally in helping write the argument in favor of that measure. So one thing that is especially near and dear to my heart on this is having to do with what I mentioned earlier, the ambassadors program, which is one of the programs that depends upon this new tax measure being passed. And also there are another number of other worthy programs, such as the youth diversion program, which is somewhat graffiti related, that I think is an important program that would also be funded by if this tax measure is passed. And finally, another area that has been controversial is having to do with biomass. That currently, a large portion of the electricity that's purchased by RCEA is produced by local timber waste in Scotia. And Dr. Wendy Ring, who is very much opposed to this, drafted a proposal that she presented to the committee, calling on the committee in the city of Arcata to oppose the use of biomass for electricity production. And the committee carefully considered that and decided that for a number of reasons, including the importance of this energy source to the city, to the county, and also the fact that it's a renewable energy source, that the committee decided not to support Dr. Ring's resolution, and I think the city council also concurred with the decision of the committee on this. So, any questions about activities of the Energy Committee?
No, thank you so much. I think that the Energy Committee is one of our more regularly meeting successful committees, so I appreciate all of your members. So thank you so much.
Okay, thank you.
And thank you, Michael.
Okay, we will now move on to council and staff reports. So first is an update on the newly adopted residential rental inspection program. And can we get an update from building official Joe Bishop? Hey.
So this will look strikingly familiar, and that's because we recently came asking for some assistance and included an update. This is the official update. So this is just a slightly updated version of what you saw last time, so I'll get through it real quick for you. The goal, we want to proactively improve the stock of housing and the safety of residents and the quality of life for the citizens of Arcata. These are slightly updated numbers. 1,443 registered parcels. So that's not units, that's parcels. So if a single parcel has a duplex or multiple units. A lot of the exemptions are the multifamily because we did ask them to register. So we have their information even though they're exempt from the current program. If the scope of this program were to change, we have that information in there already. Common corrections, just wanted to give you an idea of what we're seeing. Missing or deactivated smoke alarms, seismic straps on water heaters, and ungrounded outlets. That bottom one there, it's one of the most common DIY things is, hey, we've got 1950 two-prong outlets, and it's so easy just to go to the hardware store and buy a three-prong outlet and put it in. Well, if there's no ground, then that third prong's not really doing anything. It's actually a very easy correction, though. All they have to do is upgrade to a GFCI receptacle, and that's safe and legal per electrical code. Let's see. So we did some mailers, as I believe I told you last time. So this is just kind of a little tally of total mailed and total responded, just to give you an idea of, yeah, we sent out a lot of mail, and we do get some response, and it's effective. Let's see, we can just skip that. So basically the next steps, which we asked for permission last time and received permission, and we're ready, I believe, in 2 weeks or whenever you're ready for us. We're going to present some minor changes to the ordinance to clarify some of the language of the ordinance and some special exemption request forms. It has been requested, and we're ready to present our plan for stickers or badges or things of that nature, digital seal. And then also in the future, I don't think we'll see it right away, but we have been talking to Brian with GIS and getting basically some kind of tracking information that anybody could theoretically see. So if you were a prospective renter and you're like, has that house been inspected? You can click on a layer and say, hey, gold star, we're good to go. The last thing I wanted to share with you, this was just kind of, we've gotten a few notes. I know you can't read the handwriting, that's okay. It's the one on the left was just an example of somebody telling our administrative staff at the front counter how lovely and friendly they were, and we appreciate that. But the one on the right, the text is there. We actually typed it out so you could read it, and I'll read it aloud for anybody that can't read that. It says, Dear Ian is our building inspector. My family did not all die in a house fire last night, and that's partly because of you. Thank you for watching out for us. So in my mind, that alone right there is success, and if that's all we ever get as praise, I'll take it. So I just want to share that with you. Any questions for me?
Where's that greenhouse located?
Oh, that's just a stock image off the internet.
I'm thinking, I've never seen it, and I'm pretty familiar with Arcata. I'm thinking, where is that? Thank you.
Yes.
Well, thank you, Joe. We look forward to hearing the updates in a couple weeks.
Sounds good. Thank you.
All right, we will now get an update regarding the Complete Streets policy, and we'll get an update from City Engineer Netra Khatri.
Good evening, Council. Good evening, members of the public. Let me get my slide here. I have some slides just to show you. Wow, we got a lot of slides today. Okay. Good. As you know, in 2022, we approved our complete street policy with the mind of having a street designed for all users. As a part of the policy, we had in that written that every 2 years, we'll give you an update on the policy and what projects we have done and what exemptions we have done and the metrics related to the projects. So here, I'm just giving you a quick update on that. Our goal is to put this report in a form of Excel sheet in our website also, so people can see what we have done and how we have implemented our complete street policy. So far, these are the list of projects we have done in the last 2 years. Not all of them are street projects. Some are non-street projects like Redwood Park, but it did added some sidewalk, so we included them in this list. So we are supposed to track all the metrics, so I think this is good for us and for people to see how we are spending our money. So far, we have done almost 10 to 12 projects, some on streets, some outside the streets. We have only implemented one exemption so far, and that was only for striping work, which is exempt as a part of a complete street policy. So we have done that. So far, we have installed approximately 5,000 linear feet of sidewalk through the projects. Not all are new. Some of them are reconstruction, which were not in compliance, so we replaced them. So they are also quantified here. We have striped, resurfaced, or paved approximately 4.5 miles of street. Added at least 2.2 miles of bike lanes. That was mainly on the Western Road. New curb ramps, 120, which again, this is not only new ones. These are some of them were reconstructed, which were not in compliance. We have painted 84 crosswalks. New crosswalk enhancements, 38. No street light upgrades so far. 2 bus stop improvements. Again, this is not new bus stop, but just improvements around the bus stops. And this number should be changed because I think it says a number of projects to improve bicycle and pedestrian intersections. I would say this applies to all the projects, so there should be maybe more than 6, but we are looking into that because the only reason we did not add Redwood Park in this one because that was not a street project and there are no intersections. But that's the reason those projects are not included. These are only the street projects. And also, as a part of the complete street policy, we are supposed to, or we are, and will be tracking these numbers, and we can see that. Definitely in 2 years, we are not going to make any big changes, but this we can at least track this over the next 10 years, all the projects that we are doing, and how we can reduce this collision, anything related to that here. So this is just a quick update on our complete street policy, and again, in next 2 years, we'll be doing a lot of projects, and I'll be back again in 2 years to give you a quick update on complete street policy. So this is it. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask.
So in your map, the red spots in the map you had, that's where your accidents are occurring?
Yes, those are the
that-
hot spots. Yes, those.
Okay. And the green and the,
Green is less. It's still there are some collisions happening in those areas, but not a lot. You can see mainly most of the collisions are happening in the
so
downtown
it's
area.
sort of a limey yellow-green?
Yes.
But around the edges, it's perfect?
No, it's not perfect. These are just showing the numbers. That area has collision. The green is like there's only one. Yellow is there are 2 or 3. Red is there are more than 4 or
Okay.
5. That's the scale.
Thank you.
All right, I will say that does sound like an awful lot of collisions and deaths. So maybe that's something that Chief Silvers will be able to kind of tie into his police report, so we can figure out how to mitigate that, because that's terrible. Anybody have any other questions? All right, thank you so much. All right, now the activity report for the second quarter of 2024 from Chief Silvers. Thank you so much.
Good evening. Clearly, I'm going to have to up my game. I'm going to need to get some slides for the next time around. I'll work on that. And just to kind of, to the mayor's point.
You can quote Marc Andre.
What's that?
When he said, "I don't have any PowerPoints tonight, but I do have some really powerful points to make."
Wow, that's a lot of pressure, though. That's a lot of pressure. But to the mayor's point, if there's something that we don't have on here, please let me know, and we can do it. You know, we started obviously last quarter. This is a little bit of a work in progress, and you know what information to bring to you. And I did do it a little different this time. Left the quarter one information on there, added quarter two, and then a year to date. So please let me know, you know, if this format works for you, and I'll certainly change it going forward. But the second quarter was busy for us. We started to see the benefits of all the staffing that we've gotten. So since I talked to you last, we've had 3 officers get out of the field training program, Megan Freehoff, Efren Sanchez, and Austin Cook. So they are now solo officers on the street. With them getting out on their own, that allowed us to move 3 additional officers to the community outreach team. Also allowing us, with those 3 officers, to assign them to specific parts of the city. So Riley Tippin is downtown. Evan Beachel is in the Marsh and the Forest area. And then Chris Rogers is in Valley West. You may have seen Evan Beachel and Riley Tippin riding on some newly purchased e-bikes. Very excited about it. Evan has a few motorcycles, so that's right up his alley. But they've been great. It allows both of them really to get around efficiently and cover a lot of ground. And so we have also moved Celeste Villarreal from an officer position to a detective position, filling out the detective bureau. And then obviously the community ambassadors are continue to have an impact downtown and in Northtown. You'll see in some of the numbers the increase in the officer initiated activity. You know, I think that's obviously having more bodies and more officers on the street. And I think that also has to do with the time of year, because we have got some influx of people in town. So it's really been nice for us to be able to spread our wings a little bit and start addressing things that, you know, frankly have been difficult for us when we have to pull all of those positions back just to do primary functions of patrol. With Valley West, we've been working with Environmental Services and New Directions addressing Carlson Park. Really, from our perspective, we didn't have to do much. New Directions did a great job of going in there, contacting some folks and helping them. And so I spoke to Officer Beachel today, and that area right now is pretty clear. And so we're going to, you know, it's about consistency for us. So if we are consistent in these areas, we really have a lot of success. So that's kind of our goal with all of these people in these positions. And then if you take a look at the numbers for the second quarter, you can see the officer initiated jumped pretty dramatically, and along with that is the arrests and some of the reports. I guess the big thing for me, exciting thing for me, is if you look at staffing, you don't see any officer positions open. And so right now we're fully staffed with officers, and we are seeing a retirement next month, beginning of next month. Sergeant Chris Wilson is leaving us after I think it's 25, right about 25 years with the city. So we'll be missing him. It'll be kind of strange to be around the police department without him being around. You know, he started, I believe, as a parking or CSO, and then went to dispatcher and worked his way up. So he's been a kind of a vital part of our department for many years, and you know, asset to the city. And then going on, you can see that juvenile diversion, their new cases included this quarter. They took on 17 new cases, and They have a total of 45 that are still open. And then as far as traffic stops, those are also another or section that went up, and I think that's just with having more. We've been able to do more traffic enforcement as well with more people. And then the top 5 locations, they always and historically have stayed this is pretty much our list. You will see things kind of pop on and off. You'll see that 600 F Street is off of this list this quarter, but you see the plaza is on. And so, as we have people downtown, also, every time they go out and contact somebody or that leads to some kind of action, whatever that is, if it's a citation or, it's helping somebody to services, that's an incident. So that's going to add to that. So not all of it is negative, a negative contact, if you will. A lot of that can be helping folks out and just trying to get them to where they need to be. And so with that, if you have questions for me, I'm happy to answer them.
I'll ask. It seems like, typically from the last couple of reports, if the response locations are staying the same, wouldn't it make sense to have more than one officer stationed in Valley West?
Well, and we do. Well, I have one specifically assigned Valley West. That doesn't mean that no other officers go up there. But in this case, Officer Rogers, that is his spot, if you will. So if something specifically comes in or a bigger problem or ongoing problem, he will deal with that. And that is his primary patrol area as well. So I don't want to give the impression that these are the only people that are in those parts. If I could put more than, assign more than one officer to each location, I would. But at this point, I would be pulling from somewhere else.
And sure, I work in Valley West. I see police presence often, so thank you for that.
And it is a very, very busy area. Especially lunchtime.
Well, I've seen other officers out in Valley West too. I haven't seen him, but I've seen others. So whatever, I've just missed him, I'm sure. So it seems like I'd have to go look at these addresses to see exactly where they are. But it'll be interesting when we have our new structure with 22 new apartments on it, and Valley West, Valley East, that curve, and how things will start to change in Valley West.
It does give us having somebody up there with consistency also helps us with the private property issues with camping as well, because if those property owners have letters on file with us, Officer Rogers is able to check those areas as well. And typically that won't, the consistency, as I said before, that helps us mitigate the large encampment issue. I'm not going to say it won't happen, obviously, but if we're through an area more often, that helps alleviate the gathering and property gathering.
Mm-hmm. So Q2, October, November, December, these are the months that we're.
It would be April, May, and June, right?
I thought it's not Q4.
January, February, March, April, May, June.
April, May, June. So calendar year.
We had some vacations and stuff, so I'm a little late. Some of our staff was on vacation. And
so this is April, May, June.
Yes.
So it's summer and there's a lot of events. So
Right.
obviously, thank you for being out and about, I guess. But I'm good. Does anybody else have any other questions?
Well, I just wanted to mention, I noticed that we still have on the back the windows that we're recruiting.
We do.
And so that'll probably stay on the back of the police car windows for,
I think so.
Ever?
The one thing I think I've learned over the years is it's hard for me to even say that we're fully staffed because I know how fickle that is, and it seems to flutter away in an instant. So, I'm very happy where we're at, but I would still like people to apply and be interested in Arcata PD if that's what they choose to do. And so for now, I think I'll probably, keep those on there.
I'm going to say the new vehicle is, I only have been in one of your new vehicles, and it's really quite nice. I'm assuming the officers like them.
They do. We're still waiting on the
But there's
3
one.
from this year.
You have one, I think, for sure.
Newer, yes. Not
Maybe not newest, but newer.
right.
We do have well, I can talk to you about this some other time.
Thank you so much, Chief. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay, are there any other staff updates? All right, then we'll move along to council member updates. Start with you, Sarah.
Our CEA has been quiet, but I have a few just events and things coming up for my other boards that I'm on. Equity Arcata has quite a few things coming up as students are coming back. There's going to be a film screening of a film called Unsolved Hate, which is about the David Josiah Lawson murder and also just general experience of students of color in Arcata, along with like a facilitated conversation after, and that's going to be on August 23rd at the D Street Neighborhood Center. And then also Equity Arcata will be hosting their Home Away from Home potluck, which will also be at the D Street, which is September 8th from 5 to 6. And then I'll have more information coming on this, but Equity Arcata is also going to be supporting Cal Poly Humboldt and College of the Redwoods in offering some space and help to an event that they're putting on, which is going to be like a community conversation around the events in Palestine with some professors from the university and from both CR and Cal Poly, and then also members of Temple Bethel. And so that's going to be a really cool event. I think they're trying to do the opening here in Arcata at the community center, but the event will be 3 days and will take place here in Arcata and also in Eureka. And so more coming up on that. That's going to be mid-September, I want to say 18th, 19th, and 20th. It starts on a Wednesday. Yeah, so we won't be able to go on the Wednesday. But so a few events for students coming up with Equity Arcata. And then also September 2nd on Labor Day, Monday, September 2nd, is the iBlock Party, which is the big main fundraiser for the Sister City Project for their projects down in Camwapa, Nicaragua. And that starts at noon, and it's always such a great time, great food, great drinks, and great music. And myself and Meredith will be emceeing. So come on out and enjoy and learn about, all the different projects and enjoy some sunshine, hopefully. And that's all I got.
Thank you. So HCOG did not meet this month in July, but through HCOG and some other groups, I am continuing to work with community members and some other elected officials on trying to pursue the feasibility of a regional housing trust fund. So that's been some good work. And I did get a chance to sit down with our new fire chief, Chris Emmons, and we had a really long and great discussion. And he is enthusiastic about working together with the council, city staff, community members to really, work together to solve the problems that we share in the community regarding that. And so that I thought it was really good. And this Sunday is the Oban Festival in the Creamery District from 4 to 8. And that will, I've been able to go to that for the last couple of years, and it's a really amazing event. So I'd encourage people to attend. And I think that's it for me.
Okay. I, along with my colleagues, had the opportunity to tour the new student housing, Craftsman's Mall. It was really impressive, and it looks like it's just coming along quickly, so I'm looking forward to that. Along those lines, move-in day, can you believe it, is already coming up. I think move-in day is August 17th, so just know that there'll be an influx of students. Please be kind to them. They are our new neighbors and new citizens of Arcata, so I'm really excited to meet all the new students. This Saturday is the floating lantern ceremony, which I will be emceeing. I'm really excited for that. It's a very lovely ceremony, and I believe if you go to the farmers market during the day, you can make a lantern to bring. Encourage people to carpool to that event, and I think that's all that I have.
I would encourage people to ride their bike. But nevertheless, I have my shirt on for Ride Humboldt, and I'm involved with the Humboldt Transit Authority, and we're getting ready to promote Ride Humboldt, and it'll be quite a large campaign that'll be going on. I'm also, as part of HTA, I am also now working with them as far as the Earth Center and working towards making sure that's going to happen. We hope to have all the plans through design review in the city of Eureka by December. And this weekend is Rumble of the Redwoods, which is something that's being put on by numerous people in our community, but it'll be out at the Arcata Airport. It'll be on Saturday and Sunday. It starts at noon, and you can start arriving by 9 o'clock if you want, because everything will be open and ready for you, and it goes until 4. And so the programs are the same on each day unless there's something going on with the weather. If they have really low cloud base, then they'll take some of the shows that happen, don't have to be high in the sky, and they'll come first, and then when it clears and the sun comes out, there'll be other planes flying. And I also wanted to remember Sadiq Kilkenny. You know, he's been a longtime member of our community, and he's recently passed away, and I think about how much joy he had in our community, and he's someone that I will miss. So I think that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Alex. All right, it's time for early oral communication. The City Council values your comment. The public comment period allows people to address the council on matters that are not on the agenda. This early section of public comment is limited to 15 minutes, and speakers are limited to 2 minutes each. If you prefer to have a full 3 minutes of time for your public comment, this item is continued at the end of the meeting under item 13, where speakers are granted 3 minutes. Please know that pursuant to the Brown Act, the council cannot discuss or take action on items that are not listed on the agenda. The council may respond to statements. There will also be a time to provide public comments specific to each item when that item is reviewed by the council. We will take in-person comments first and then go to Zoom. We'll not go back and forth. So if you are in person and you would like to make a public comment, please make your way to the podium. Raise your hand if you're on Zoom, or press *9 if you are calling in by phone and wish to make comment.
Ready? Mayor Matthews, Arcata City Council members, City Manager Karen Deemer. My name is Bob Follis. I'm a resident of City Arcata at 1149 Stromberg, along with my wife. We've been continuous residents at that location since the summer of 1977. We've been continuous residents of the city since the fall of 1970. Briefly here to present a letter to you through the city manager regarding concerns that I have about the drainage issues out on North Fork, Janes Creek. I'm representing only myself in this. With consultation with other people out there, I'm quite familiar with the problems. Another person would be here tonight, and that's Jane Frazier. She's a resident out there. Right now, she's in a cattle drive trying to round up heifers out on her property and bring them back in. So she told me she would present her own letter in the next few days. So that's all I'm here for. I appreciate you allowing me to speak. I do want to address Karen Deemer. I want to thank you excuse me, for all your years of service. Been a great one. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, good evening, council members. I'm Isaac Lyons. I'm actually here to speak on the behalf of Carly Tambling and Brighton Green. Brighton Green is a reusable dishware that Carly Tambling would like to bring to our city and continue to be successful within our community. So she would appreciate the opportunity to present a proposal for utilizing a portion of the remaining ARPA funds to support a sustainable initiative that will benefit our community. Brighton Green is requesting $3,000 from the city's ARPA funds to create an inventory of reusable serviceware for events, gatherings, initiatives. The initiative aims to significantly reduce single-use waste and foster a culture of sustainability in Arcata. If any of you have seen Carly in action at the Oyster Fest or any of these other places, not only is her dishware succeeding, but it's also reducing a lot of the amount of waste that goes into the trash, curbing compostables and other things. So with the $3,000, she would create an inventory in addition to what she has already. Most of the money would go towards management and accessibility because the service, there is no deposit, but instead she sells the service so that any event could receive Brighton Green dishware There's a lot of employment opportunities involved in this, and it creates a closed loop system to establish greater sustainability within our community. So she believes that providing this resource can help our community transition away from single-use items, ultimately contributing to a healthier environment and a more sustainable future for Arcata. This initiative reflects the city's commitment to climate change, adaptation, and community, aligning with many people ongoing projects.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you for your comments.
Thank you.
Hello, City Council, and thank you very much for your service and for the opportunity to speak this evening. I would like to honor and acknowledge our dear City Manager, Karen Deemer. I have had the privilege in my career, for some of you who know me, I've worked with hundreds of leaders over the last 4 decades. And I can say with great honesty and sincerity that Karen Deemer is one of the finest leaders I've ever had the opportunity to work with and to watch and to observe. And I say this because of Karen's ability to be a strategic thinker and to always do it with such heart. It's a rare thing to have someone have such a great brain and a great heart who works through relationships and difficult situations with great equanimity and wisdom. So I am so grateful to you, Karen, for the service you have provided our community for all these years. Thank you.
Thank you. I really wasn't planning on crying until the end, but here we go.
Public comment is over.
Good evening, Madam Mayor and Councilwomen. My name is Maya Conrad. I'm a local realtor. I've worked in Arcata for years. I am also on the McKinleyville Municipal Advisory Committee, and I have had the pleasure of being a peer and a friend of City Manager Karen Deemer's for years. And I really want to thank and congratulate her for her exemplary leadership over all of these years and her ability to be such a high-level thinker and still show up to somebody's house with a homemade quiche is unparalleled. I mean, her capacity is huge, and I am so grateful to know her and for all of her amazing years of service here. So thank you.
Thank you, Maya.
Good evening, Arcata City Council, Chairperson Matthews, Arcata City Council women, I should say. I too am here this evening as a member of the McMack, the McKinleyville Municipal Advisory Committee, from that little census designated area just to the north of you. I'm also here as another woman leader in the community and great admirer of Karen Deemer's to say congratulations and thank you so much for everything you've done, not just for Arcata, but that bleeds out into the entire community. So from the bottom of my heart, thank you for your leadership style and model. You're a great example for the rest of us. Your humility, your work behind the scenes, your grace under pressure, and as everyone has already indicated, your heart and your brain, and you give it all. And I'm grateful to know you outside of the public arena and for what you have done for our entire community. And enjoy. Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa.
Good evening, all. My name is Roger James. Mary and I have been living in Arcata now for about 11 years. And I can say without any qualifications that I can't think of any place else in the world we'd rather live. And a large part of that is because of the work that you all do, and including Karen. The focus on making Arcata a wonderful place to live, an inviting place to live, a place where everyone feels safe and heard and brought into the fold is just very heartwarming, especially in the political climate in the country right now. I just want to thank you, Karen, for everything you've done for all of us. have a lovely retirement.
Thank you, Roger. If there's anyone else that would like to make in public early oral communication, speak now.
Sorry for the long walk. That's Sadiq. Whatever he had, we should bottle it because he's on the list of wonderful people. And fortunately, it's a long list around here. And speaking of Karen, I've been covering news in which Karen has been involved for about 3 decades now. After seeing someone in action week after month after year, indoors, outdoors, under all kinds of circumstances, joyous, routine, and otherwise, and at all times of day, from late night meetings to 4 a.m. on the plaza for the statue removal, you develop a sense of what they're all about. And my sense is that Karen Deemer is some kind of local government polymath, one who is driven by 2 overriding ethics: the joy of process as a means for getting things done, and always in service of the prime directive, which is carrying out the will of the people. The theory being that citizens elect representatives who then codify the city's direction in a set of goals, which the administration then brings about. And if you're going to do that smartly and effectively and non-miserably, you're going to make sure that it's a fun process. These motivations aren't anything Karen's told me. They're just consistent with what I've observed. My first inkling about the joy of process, this sort of reality distortion field that surrounds her, occurred a long time ago when I was covering a Parks and Rec Committee meeting in which Karen, who then served in that department, was the staff liaison. I recorded the meeting on a small primitive microcassette recorder. Can I finish? When I went to write up whatever the story was the next day, I ran the tape back on this little Radio Shack device and played it, but there was no meeting. It was just laughter. It was just people laughing. And I thought, did I record a radio station or something? And I mean, I didn't. How did I do it? What radio station plays people laughing all the time? So I rewound it. And when I was fiddling with it, I realized that it had been set to voice actuation and on the high threshold, so that only the loudest things would get recorded, which is what you use when you're recording an interview in Times Square or an airport tarmac or something. But what I had recorded was the Parks and Rec meeting, people laughing. The conversation didn't happen, but there was just so much laughter at the meeting. It just went on and on and on. And so, this wasn't something you noticed at the time. You just knew that you were having a good, buoyant meeting. And so meetings aren't where you go
Thank
for
you, Kevin.
mirth
I'm
and
sorry
merriment,
to
but
cut
with
you
Karen
off.
there to uplift everyone, there it was, and there it is, and there she goes. And thanks,
Thank you
Karen,
so much.
for everything. Sorry for going on so long.
Do we have anybody on Zoom?
We do. Go ahead, Colin.
Good evening, everyone. This is Colin Fisk with CRTP. I wanted to just take the opportunity to briefly comment on the Complete Streets policy and to thank City Engineer Khatri for the report. And also to point out that the policy also calls for presenting the data to the TSC and the TUTOC and posting it on the website, and hope that that those things can be done so that we can have more discussion and continuing transparency on that. So just wanted to point that out, and also I guess I will add my thanks and admiration and appreciation for City Manager Deemer. Thank you.
Thank you, Colin.
No further online public comment.
Okay, we'll move on to the consent calendar. So all matters on the consent calendar are considered to be routine by the City Council and are enacted in one motion. There is no separate discussion of any of these items. If discussion is required, that item is removed from the consent calendar and considered separately. A is approve the minutes of the City Council meeting of June 12th, 2024. B, approve the minutes of the City Council meeting of June 20th, 2024. C, approve the minutes of the City Council meeting of July 17th, 2024. D is the bi-weekly report on disbursements. E is adopt ordinance number 1569, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Arcata amending the Land Use Code, Title 9, Planning and Zoning of the Arcata Municipal Code to adopt the Gateway Code and zoning districts throughout the city, waive reading the text, and consent to read by title only. F, accept a total of $9,900 in donations for 3 commemorative benches in the Arcata Community Forest and along the Arcata portion of the Humboldt Bay Trail North. G is adopt resolution number 245-06, authorizing the city manager to file a financial assistance application with the State Water Resource Control Board to fund the city's 2019 water line replacement project, and adopt resolution number 245-08, stating its intent to reimburse expenditure by the State Water Resources Control Board made in support of the city's 2019 water line replacement project. H is to approve the purchase of one Toro Workman UTX utility vehicle, $32,258.43, including tax and freight, and award purchase contract to Turf Star Western. Approve the purchase of one Go 4 sliding door electric vehicle, $46,102.59, including tax and freight, and award the purchase contract to Turf Star Western. Approve the project of one John Deere 6130M tractor with a Tiger Bengal Brute mid-mount boom mower system, $278,759. I don't make up the names, including tax and freight, an award purchase contract to Tiger Mowers Incorporated, and authorize the city manager to execute all applicable documents. And I, modify award of 2024 timber sale to KP's Custom Milled Redwood for 50 MBF of redwood. Award agreement for the 235 MBF of redwood 15 feet inches in diameter and larger in the 2024 timber sale to Willits Redwood Company. Authorize the city manager to negotiate the sale of redwood logs smaller than 15 inches in diameter, and authorize the city manager to execute all applicable documents. All right, I will be removing item E and continuing the public hearing as needed to the next meeting, which is on October 21st, with when Councilmember White is present to vote on this item. But we'll probably have to continue it even past then.
Okay. Well,
I don't know.
August.
It says August.
If I could, if you're going to, we'll pull that item, we'll have it continued. If we want to try for August 21st, if we don't, we can pick the first regular meeting in September. I'll make that be the call of the mayor. But we will need to continue that due to a lack of quorum. We would prefer to have a motion on this item. All of you present can vote on that motion. It is just procedural. It's not contextual to the item itself. But to vote to continue that item to a date certain. So that would either be August 21st or or September 4th. What do you feel like?
I feel like, just to be safe, September 4th, because I'll be, yeah.
Okay. So moved to September 4th.
I'm going to have to ask that I remove bi-weekly.
We have a motion.
I'll second.
One item, yes.
Okay, we have a motion to
Sorry.
continue by Councilmember Schaefer and second by Councilmember Atkins Salazar. That's on item E. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right. Alex, you wanted to?
I remove bi-weekly report on distributions.
Okay, so Alex is pulling item B. All right. So
I would move for approval of A through I minus E and D.
let's hold that thought and ask if we have any members of the public waiting to comment on any of the consent calendar items. If so, please, I'm up at the podium now, or raise your hand on Zoom. So you can comment on any of these items that you would like, if you would like to. Not E, because it's removed. Anybody on Zoom?
No.
All right, go ahead. Do you want to make a motion?
So I move again for consent calendar A through I minus E and D.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, Alex, what was your question on?
On D? Yes. Oh, I have a disbursement that comes to me for a tenant.
Since you'd just
And
like
it
to
comes
recuse
out-
yourself from
Just
that vote,
recuse
you don't
yourself.
need to leave the
Comes out
dais for
once
this
a month-
item.
Once a
This-
month, and so that's why I've been pulling this and not voting on it.
Okay, so one of us needs to make a motion for it.
I'll make a motion to approve item D.
I'll second it.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, motion passes. Okay, let's move on to old business, and we are receiving an update on fiscal year 2024-25 budget of American Rescue Plan Act ARPA funds and considering reallocating appropriated funds. And we have Finance Director Tabitha Miller giving us a staff report.
Good evening. Again, good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, City Council. So this actually came out of our budget discussions when you adopted the budget back in June, and we were following up on a couple items. We have two more that will come before you in the next month or so. But this one had some timeliness that we wanted to address it earlier rather than later. So I wanted to sort of preface it and make sure that everybody understood what we were doing here is that our goal is to ensure that we fully use all of the ARPA funds that we received back in early 23, about $4.4 million. We do have a deadline that is coming up. All of those funds have to either be spent or committed by December 31st of 2024. And as we talked about when you adopted the 24-25 budget, there is a roughly $900,000 of unspent money. That number is not an absolute number because we're still, our fiscal year 23-24 is still open and we're finalizing some final payments, but that's a pretty good estimate. Over the last couple years, the term committed has been used by the Treasury as far as how we have to manage those funds and report them. And it was fairly loose of a term in the beginning, and it implied that just budgeting funds would allow you to commit them. In the most current guidance that came out about 6 months, 8 months ago, the word committed has a little bit more meaning to it, and it's now required that you have a contracts, deliverables, or agreements in place for those funds by December 31st, 2024. And just to be upfront and open, there's very few items within that $900,000 budget that we would meet that real strong commitment as far as a written document that we could prove that it's been committed. So what we're trying to do tonight is speed up expenditure of some of those funds. Oops, didn't mean to go backwards. Let's try this. There you go. So that we can ensure that we meet all the requirements of the guidance on ARPA and also have those funds potentially available for future projects for the City Council. Really quickly, just a little bit of background. This was $350 billion under the Coronavirus State and Local Fiscal Recovery Funds program. It was an ARPA program, and it gave about it gave money to state, territorial, local, and tribal governments. It was in response to COVID for support for economic and public health impacts. There were only really two ineligible uses, payment of debt and payment of your unfunded liability outside of your normal annual requirements. And there is quite a bit as far as eligible uses, and just a couple to point out: public health response, replacement of lost public sector revenue, economic stabilization, and investment in infrastructure. So a few choices that the City of Arcata made that are useful for your context is that because we received less than $10 million, we were able to take sort of a standard deduction or allowance of revenue loss, and it limited our ability to do calculations of the actual revenue lost, and it simplified our reporting, and it gave us more flexibility as to how we could spend those dollars. We're able to spend them on pretty much general government services with those few exclusions that we've already talked about, which really is what we are already doing, the services that we're already providing. That doesn't mean that we don't have to report, and it doesn't mean that we don't have to provide details on how we're spending that money for transparency and accountability. There are other uses of those ARPA funds that are allowed, and really falls into what we're going to talk about tonight. Is you can do it to avoid layoffs, to backfill vacant positions, and also to increase staffing levels. And they specifically call out public safety personnel, including police, firefighters, and staff that provide mental health services to students. And that certainly includes a good portion of our public safety unit. So kind of back to the remaining funds. Again, I don't believe that we would meet the committed requirement as it is currently provided in the guidance. This has changed over the life of the ARPA program, and we may be subject to reimbursement if we have funds outstanding at the end of this calendar year, which is less than 5 months away. So, and then I would remind folks that we do have a presidential election in November, and we will have a new administration, and that will change potentially how this is handled. So my goal tonight is really to make sure that we act so that we can ensure that we are able to spend all those funds. So what we are proposing is to use, because we have that broad ability, flexibility under our use, and because we can use it for staffing, we're proposing that we take estimated amount of ARPA that won't be spent and reallocate it to police department staffing. And the purpose behind this is that our police department is, for the most part, funded 100% from the general fund. And our general fund revenues and expenditures are the area where you have the most flexibility, and it's an easy place for us to use the money up front and then set aside a reserve of anything that would have remained that we have used salaries to replace. This particular chart was also included in the staff report, and you can see in the 24-25 budget, which is just 2 over from the right-hand side, I've got a few things highlighted. You can see that we've got essentially about $907,000 that we have budgeted. The items in yellow are the ones that I believe will not be fully spent before December 31st of 2024. You can see the projections in the second column, and if you do the math, you can see that there's, at the bottom there, the estimated ending available is that we are likely to end the year with about $427,000 that's unspent. To give us a little bit of a buffer, what I'm asking for is to do 2 things, and I'll move to the next one. Actually, before I leave this one, I'm going to take this a little out of order. I had highlighted 2 items here, $35,000 under active transportation project and $25,000 under participatory budget project. These items were in your, when you adopted the budget, this was actually coded as, it was $60,000 that was unallocated at the time. The $25,000 participatory budget project came up when we realized that we had not set aside funds. This is part of the CUNA. It's one of the projects they do. Those funds had not been set aside. And then the $35,000 was the remainder, and we have some, certainly have some transportation, alternative transportation programs that those funds can easily be used, and also help transportation and also climate change by allowing people to get out of their cars. So what we're asking of the council is that you provide authorization to reappropriate $269,000 from existing ARPA projects to police department staffing. And we would do that actually retroactively to July 1st. In addition to that, we do have staffing included in the police department in the ARPA budget, and we'd like to expedite use of that so that we can ensure that it is fully expended by December 31st, 2024. What we'll do is we will set aside all of those funds that were essentially expedited or used. It's approximately $425, but it will include some staffing for community ambassadors if you choose to continue that program, and potentially also our sergeant. But we would set those aside as a reserve in the general fund, and then you would have an opportunity during the mid-year budget, which typically takes place in January and February, to review those and potentially make decisions on whether you want to continue some of the current ARPA projects that you have in place or reallocate them. And part of that's because we've run in, and I'm going to go backwards again. Oops, I'm not doing well with moving around. There we go. I'll learn it. You know, our things like the support payments at the top, the $20,000, 10,000 of that you had allocated to the Valley West Community Center, which was contingent on the current lease with Woodsman Hall. I doubt that that's going to be used in that use. You've also got a tribal partnership, that is set up. We just don't have a project identified yet, so that's another one that is not going to happen right away. The MIST program, we wanted to give you a little bit of an update here. We are not renewing the contract with the county for a couple reasons. One, because it's unclear exactly what's going to happen with their program going forward, with many of the changes that are happening in funding at the county and the state level, and wanting to make sure that what we replace it with works, and I doubt that that'll be in place by the end of the year. The climate action plan support is really contingent on the county adopting that regional plan, and that's another item that I'm not sure of the timing. And then the Valley West Community Center, while we will spend some money in the current fiscal year, we're not probably going to do the renovations that we had anticipated there, and so there'll be funds that you'll likely want to reallocate to something different. And then the staffing both at the community ambassador and the outreach sergeant, while they will likely be spent by the end of the fiscal year or middle of the following fiscal year, they will not be spent by December 31st. So again, there's some flexibility I wanted to make sure the council was aware of. And the one final thing, and this is really just because there's been some questions about projects and how the funds have been used, reporting and transparency. It's a little bit awkward, but every April, at least the 2 years I've been here, we have federal mandated reporting to the federal government, and we break the projects down into these projects. I inherited some of this outline. I didn't necessarily completely develop it myself, but these are the projects that we are reporting on. This happens to be, we reported in April and included all the numbers to date, so all the years of projects, all the spending that's happened, and all the budgets that have been adopted through March 31st of 2024. Again, it doesn't coincide with our fiscal year, so it is a little bit like taking a round peg and trying to shove it in a square hole, but it is a comparison. And I thought I would just quickly kind of walk you through it. It is estimates for year end, but we're pretty darn close to the numbers there. And you can see that of the $4.4 million, we've allocated almost $4.1 million in budgets, and we'll have spent $3.6 million by the end of the fiscal year that we just finished. You've got funding for Valley West neighborhood support in total there, staff positions that were frozen during the pandemic. We've spent over $1 million of money there. The Arcata economic recovery, which is many of our support payments to your partners that helped there. The MIST program, we've spent $1,000. Community Ambassador Project has spent almost $195,000. Your Safe Parking Program, which was successful and is a little higher here because we added a month to bridge that gap between the city ending the program and the county picking up financing. The Project 7, the Arcata House Partnership Support, is on the list because it was an original project to support services for the homeless, and then we were able to get a grant through the CDBG COVID, and so we transitioned and used those funds instead, always trying to maximize our sources. We've got the essential city staff compensation. This happened early on in ARPA. The upgrades to this chamber that have happened and are allow for meetings remotely. You have your city facility energy and resiliency upgrades. I know there's been a lot of conversation about this, but we have spent about $127,000, and when you look at all of the funding, you'll get well over $1 million in this same period of time that's been spent on what we would call climate change programs. The pavement master plan, $350,000. We helped get more pavement down in our area. It subsidized the boat launch project at South I Street. We were able to do the public safety radio upgrade. This was actually a part of a much larger $800,000 project. You have the Valley West Community Center. We were able to do the GIS aerial survey update, which means that we have up-to-date current GIS information in our database, and then sidewalk improvements, which of course also add to our ability for pedestrians to get around town. But I thought that might be a nice overview for all of you, because I don't know that we've ever looked at it in total year to date. And here I am going backwards again. There we go. If you have any questions.
Well, so what I'm thinking is that, is it okay?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. I'm just thinking that if we were to reallocate or take the ARPA funds, put them towards the police department, then we have money that from the police department that we could put into the general fund. And then we can look at we received many letters concerning the ARPA money for various things. That would give us an opportunity at that time, when we do mid-year budget review or something, to look at those projects that we receive letters on, and then, because we would have that money available.
Exactly. And you're probably looking at, and again, this is going to depend on where we end fiscal year 23-24 and how much actually gets spent on specific projects by the end of this calendar year, but probably between $300,000 and $400,000.
Well, for me personally, I think it's very important that we figure out how to keep our ARPA money. It's made a big difference for us over the years in Arcata since we've had it, and we definitely don't want to lose it or have it recalled because we haven't spent it. And it's made a great difference, and we're hoping that with our sales tax that we'll be able to continue some of the programs that we started during the ARPA time, and we'll be able to continue those. So I don't know what you all want to do, but I would support the idea.
I think Councilmember Schaefer and I have a lot of questions between the two of us. Not bad questions, but just there's a lot going on here with numbers. So I guess the first one for me, I'll just start with a couple.
They're probably the same as mine.
Okay. But when you mentioned 269 to the police, is that just part of that little general fund swap? Or are you suggesting that it's an additional 269?
No, that's actually a really good clarification. So it would be a swap.
Okay.
So I would literally take the budget that we have in projects, move it up into, we already have line items for police department staffing, and then we would essentially stop paying those officers out of the general fund, start paying them out of ARPA, and then we would do a true up, and when we adopt the mid-year budget, we would actually set aside sort of that 269,000 plus or minus the differences of actuals. So
Okay.
it is definitely a swap. We're saving in one place and reserving in another.
Okay, that's fine. I've talked to several people today, and I was explaining the swap, and so I just want to make sure that I've got it correct. So then another area that I'm a bit confused on is when we look at the pretty tight chart, those line items of what we spent. I think it shows that we've actually spent, like we budgeted 200 and something, but we've spent 127-ish on facility upgrades, energy savings, and we're talking about that for our climate goals money. But then you gave us a great one-sheeter, or somebody did, that has climate change ARPA allocation on it. And between the allocations and the spending, it is a lot more than that. And so I think we also heard from a lot of folks just wondering, wanting to make sure, hey, you guys set aside 500,000, what are you doing with that? And if you look at this, it looks like we haven't spent very much of it. But if you look at the new paper that we got hasn't been available yet, it's got a lot on it.
It is true, and there's and I know that the city manager probably can help me out a little bit here, but probably one of the big things that I think is important to point out is that we were able to receive a ECAA grant of $576,000, and that's actually included, the expenditures are included in this year's budget outside of ARPA, because it wasn't ARPA money, it's in the general fund. And so we were able to transition some projects that had been budgeted for ARPA and needed some more time, and also some additional projects to that funding source, and that will be repaid with the energy savings that those generate. So it should be a net zero to the city over time. I know there were a number of other items that have been Other funding has been used for, in addition to some of the projects here, such as the battery backups. And if you look at that, that's about just under $350,000 for facilities. And then you've got projects that have happened that were not necessarily considered, don't really fall under line item 10, city facility energy and resilience. But if you look at the list there, your sidewalk improvement program, you've got $40,000. That certainly assists climate by getting people out of their cars and providing alternative ways for them to move. I know that the chief mentioned the 2 e-bikes that they implemented, they put in service this month, and that actually is in between funding. It hasn't even hit anything because we ordered the bikes at the end of June, received them in July. We haven't even paid the bill, but that's $10,813, which honestly is not anywhere at this point on any of these charts you're going to see. What else am I missing?
So I think conceptually, if you're trying to rectify between this chart and the chart that was provided today, is that you've got the 250 that was budgeted, wait, where am I? 215 that was budgeted. Then you have the sidewalk improvement projects at 50,000 that was budgeted. And then you've got portions of our master plan for paving that was budgeted that are all reflected in these projects here. And then you've got some of the, where's our beautification dollars is going to be, I think, in economic, Arcata economic recovery.
It's also part of the money that's sort of missing from the bottom line. There's about $300,000 that hadn't been specifically dedicated because those projects hadn't been clearly identified yet.
Right, but to be clear, and we have, so the list that was provided today is a list of the projects that the council outlined and then allocated $500,000 in ARPA funds to. And then we provided an update on where those projects are to date, the current either final cost if the project is complete or the estimated cost. And the estimated cost to finish all of those projects that we hope to do for $500,000 is actually now almost 1.2 million, right? And so trying to get all of those projects that the council allocated or the goals completed, staff has gone out and already found additional funds to try to support those projects. So Director Miller mentioned that one of the largest ones is in planning for upgrades to city facilities. We had set aside $380,000. We actually have completed 3 of those projects for about $65,000 that has been spent out of that. The large project, which was over $500,000, we didn't have enough money left over for. So we went out to seek additional funding. Now, at this point, we anticipate that funding source to be able to fund that entire project, right? So you don't need to use the ARPA funds that were set aside for that specific to this project at this time. So that 1.158 million is a combination of ARPA funds and then additional funds that we had found from other sources. I think there's one other large example of that is going to be in here. Which is the battery backup projects. So for battery backup, you had only funded $10,000 towards that. So the idea was we had several facilities that we were looking at Tesla batteries. We anticipated needing some project planning dollars. At this point, we haven't needed those project planning dollars. We've completed the first battery backup project at the First Street lift station. We have 2, one at City Hall and one at the community center that are on deck to be implemented this year for about $300,000. Those are not ARPA dollars, but it is completing that project that was identified through the ARPA funding project. So I know it can be hard for the community to say, we want ARPA-specific dollars. I'll be honest, for me, these are general fund dollars that went into your general fund to be allocated. We came up with a list of priority projects to fund, and it was the goal of staff to fund all of those projects, whether it was ARPA or other funds. Quite frankly, they're all the same to me as long as we spend the money and then bring in more to complete the project when we need to.
No, I think you're correct, and I think I don't think folks have a particular passion for ARPA funding. I think they just wanted to make sure, hey, you guys said you were going to spend $500,000. So in looking at this, that and other things, it's been 1 million. And so I guess, for folks that have that concern can reach out to us, and we all have a copy of this digitally from you. We can get out to people. I don't know what's another, like, a good way, because, it's a lot, and people will want to see this, and it's good work, so we should be sharing it.
Yeah, and we mailed it to anyone who, if any of you sent us emails today, we sent it out to everybody that was on those lists today.
Yeah, and so I'm kind of just still, I get the idea of the swap, and I support that, and it makes sense because I'm of that same frame of, yeah, it's all general fund dollars and it's all going into the same pot and we're going to spend it. However, I start to get uneasy because we've now, because this was on the agenda, been receiving emails about now increasing funding for different programs, different projects, whole new projects that were never even talked about with ARPA coming forward. And so it makes me, I want to support and commit to the projects that, like, we've spent hours at meetings talking and hammering down what we want to do. And so for me right now, going through and addressing, maybe some of these things and changing things, I don't want to do that. And I don't know how other people feel. I want to, still commit to the projects that we have talked about. And as long as they are going to tangibly get done, even with general fund dollars down the line, I would prefer to see that happen. However, so I would just like to, I guess, see or ask, is there going to be a way that we can then see these projects budgeted into our general fund and basically get some sort of, whether it's at mid-year or even before that, like a budget update that shows that these projects are committed from the general fund money? Thinking about things like, climate action plan funding, that's really important to people. And keeping these things that we talked about, like these tribal partnerships and stuff that's been, really important to some of us here on council and to the community, to be able to tangibly see it in the budget so that we don't, forget and the money gets switched around and then all of a sudden we're doing this whole ARPA overhaul again and then reallocating to new projects and changing what we've already really committed, where I know that there's like certain groups that are, relying on funding that we've already allocated, or, folks that are excited about projects that we've already allocated to, so.
Well, can I just add to that before you answer? Because I think, yes, I agree, yes. But I think where the confusion came in, I don't know about you guys, but some of the emails I received were under the assumption that we had anywhere from $45,000 to $900,000 of money available. And that's where all the asks are coming in. And to be honest, like, I'm a little confused as well. So I guess that also needs to be said, like, have we allocated everything, or is there money?
Yeah, because that's kind of where I'm confused, because the number that we're setting aside, that we're, swapping, is the 269,000. Like, where does that number?
But then doesn't that also include the ambassador money as well? It's those two pots of money because the ambassadors are under the police department, right?
So again, there is the chance, because we have not closed our books for 23-24, that there might be a slight movement on this. But essentially, when you look at the bottom of what we've budgeted for 24-25, we have budgeted $907,000, $907,253. And we are starting with $899. We've got probably about $5,000 in interest, and so there is a chance that will be a couple, because we're trying to get to the exact dollar, and we don't have final numbers, and we budgeted 2.5 months ago. We are going to probably have a few $1,000s that moves back and forth. But if you take that $907,000, that really is what you've budgeted, and that is the last of the ARPA funding, assuming it gets spent. The problem is making sure that it gets spent, and it is, with the exception of what we talked about tonight, which was the $60,000, and I know I'm throwing my numbers around, and I apologize, but with the exception of that $60,000 that had been unallocated, and we are putting into two pots tonight. One is the participatory budget project, and the other is the active transportation project. All of the money has been identified for a project. The challenge is going to be, in a few of those cases, the projects that we picked back in, and it was even before June. Not everything is as viable, including, what we're going to do with the Woodsman Hall. there'll be a little bit of funding there, probably not enough for an additional community center, but you could certainly commit it to what you've already done, which is a community center in Valley West. I don't think there's going to be much moving of funds because you have bought some time in order to spend those down. But I can't guarantee that all the projects are going to be feasible.
Can I just try to clarify what staff's assumption is right now? Is that all of the projects that were budgeted for in 24-25 are still the priority projects, that monies that are freed up in the general fund that we will replace with, we're basically looking at where can we put ARPA-approved expenditures. Our suggestion is that the easiest place for us to build those out is going to be police officer staffing, right? Police officer staffing frees up general fund dollars. We are assuming that all of those are going to be set aside in a reserve for those projects to be completed. The timelines come off, and you can work, staff can work through those. You can continue to discuss those at mid-year. If you choose to make changes next fiscal year, you could. If a project, let's say that we develop something really different for MIST and it costs a different amount, you might have some money left, but that money has no strings left on it. That's just straight general fund dollars. But we're assuming that every project here, that general fund dollar gets set aside for those projects to continue, whether that continues this fiscal year or next fiscal year or the following, that is still allocated to those projects.
Okay, so when we're talking about money that's allocated to climate change, I just want to kind of respond to one of the people that commented, like, I have, firsthand witnessed, Carly and her Bright and Green. I have seen how it's been like super effective and wonderful at the farmers markets and several other events. And I think that, if we're gonna look for things to allocate for climate change, I don't think that like $3,000 to $5,000. I would like it to be $5,000. I would like for her to get like enough to backfill her supplies, and then she's looking for funding to be able to provide that service at the farmer's market. I'd like to give her a little bit of a cushion to be able to continue to do that. I think that's like a real tangible climate thing that we can do right now that's easily allocated. So, that's something that I'd like to suggest.
And you do still have your council support budget for this fresh new fiscal year, and you could allocate $3,000 to $5,000 out of that if you wanted to for that project.
But it's all going to be the same money because it's going to go into the general fund.
It's all the same money.
It's clicked now.
Well, it is, but we're opening that door that you were like, we have a line of requests, and we spent a lot of time doing this. And I'm not arguing against Bright and Green. I'm just saying, I thought that our climate stuff was already all tied up, or no?
It is. That's just why I'm saying, my suggestion is you did set aside a small pot of money for small requests like that come out through the year. So if that's something that you would like to take up as an agenda item to consider through those support payments, you could.
I love that. And I also want my Welcome to Arcata sign too.
So what?
Yes.
But we'll be looking at the. I'm assuming we'll all be looking at the budget in mid-year, and at that time we can make those allocations. Unless you want to do it now.
No, that's fine.
No, our assumption is that the
make sure
allocations
that
are going to stay
out there,
to the
that
same
was
project.
an important project that I'd like to kind of look at.
The only difference is that instead of having a separate ARPA fund, you'll now look at them as part of your general fund, and that really is going to be the difference when we come back to you in January.
Well, and I think that'll be less confusing. So we can just kind of let go and just finish out the projects, and then we don't have to continue. I guess I do have a question about the participatory budget project. Is that something that already happened? Because if the contract is ending in November, why would they be spending $25,000 for a budget unless they already did this?
Right, so they have completed all of the community engagement meetings around participatory budget, and all they have left to do is the voting. So the hope is that, but you've also received some emails from this, and we have a couple of people online, I know, that are staff from CUNA. They could certainly answer questions about CUNA if you have them. But they have completed, they'll go through the voting, and then there will be a list of projects. Some of those might be projects that the city staff, they've requested things like benches in the past. Others have been more participatory programs, so they've been dance classes that CUNA has actually coordinated. So until we finalize that voting, which should happen here within the next month or so, then we'll know what those projects are and what level of support those projects will need. Right now, CUNA and its general support is funded through November of this year.
And I do have to say that, I appreciated what we did receive from them as far as a quarterly report. What I would have really hoped to see was like a financial breakdown of numbers, like what was spent on what. Like this is like great information, but I'd like to know like where that money is going, like what's paying for what.
Well, and thanks for answering the question, because I was when it said participatory budget project, I thought that was money just to facilitate the budget planning, and it seemed really expensive. And so if that's for projects, then I get that. So they're voting, and then that's money, which does answer some of the questions from the email. So there is some, so we're, just to be like really clear for the public, we're actually officially $2,294 overspent, correct, on the money?
Over budgeted, and again, there's I know this is, I can't tell you exactly, but yes, we are over budgeted by just under $3,000, or just
Right.
under $2,300.
Okay, but we don't have any more money to give in this moment. We might have a little bit, but not enough. We have done well with the climate money, and CUNA does have $25,000 to spend how they choose in the community.
How the community chooses, yeah. I mean, it will be, that money is right now choosing to be dedicated towards the outcome of the vote of how those neighborhoods, choose to spend that money.
All right, is everybody okay if we pause and open it up for public comment? Let's do that. So we are taking public comment on this agenda item.
My name's Joanne McGarry, and I'm a little confused still, partly because I can't hear everything that's being said here. I am getting hearing aids soon. But the ARPA monies, I'm a little confused in the chart about the Arcata House partnership. So monies that have already been spent, Arcata House, instead of getting ARPA monies, the city found other grant monies to give to Arcata House for projects. And then Arcata House was being considered, I thought, for some ARPA monies that ended up going to Playhouse Arts for our space. So I'd like a little bit of clarification about that. And I agree that it would be nice to know a little bit of a breakdown on some of those monies, like safe parking, which is a huge chunk of money. What specifically did all that money go to for safe parking? And then if it's all general funds, is there any little bits of money to fund something like Brighton Green or something like my idea of earth banners next to the Cal Poly banners on the lampposts? Or, because I thought that was ARPA money too, spent by us for those Cal Poly banner installations. I know Cal Poly paid for the making of the banners, but the city staff installed them, so that cost money to install them. And then, other ideas like I had presented before with native plant garden, replacing the front lawn of City Hall. So I'm really kind of confused by all this, and I have not seen that piece of paper that you all are referring to that's different from the thing on the wall. But I don't want to give ARPA money back, that's for sure. And I appreciate the figuring out, using huge chunks of it now for things like police staffing, as long as, the next budget, it can be continued on, we don't have to worry about that. So, I kind of get that, but I'm still really confused about what was approved, what's being spent, what's still left. Is there any, little tidbits of money for those little projects that, some of us are desiring? So, I would like climate change and banners to just promote the climate action that we're hopefully going to take as a community. And, Brighton Green is another part of that climate action. So the blue dot and the Brighton Green. Thanks.
Thank you, Joanne.
All right, thank you again for hosting this and explaining and expressing some important things here. Again, I'm Isaac Lyons. I've talked to a number of you about my vision for Arcata. I'm a local general contractor, born and raised Arcata, and work in the housing industry, building primarily ADUs. So we do semi-custom construction throughout Arcata and Humboldt County. We have occupied a industrial property in Gentoli Lane. It's about 1.5 acres. We rent from Andy Cooper, and we're looking to develop localized, low carbon, prefabricated housing. Now, I came here on Carly's behalf. We're actually accommodating some of Carly's needs down there on our commercial facility. We're looking to also start accommodating the Humboldt County Office of Education is looking at our facility in order to create and host their HROP program, their job training and construction technologies program. So we're kind of setting up and poised to be able to provide solutions to Arcata's and Humboldt County's housing challenges. Now, we've been working on this for a number of years just by providing our best price to customers. Now we're looking to take it a next level and create prefabricated housing that would apply to homelessness, transitional housing, and also our domestic market. You know, the bottleneck is often design, permitting, approval, financing, and all these things within our housing structure as we know it are very challenging to get through. So there's all these hurdles, and if you misstep, you know, you fall off and you're in the back of the line. And quite frankly, a lot of people can't afford it right now. The ADU is, you know, you're talking about $250,000 for an ADU. We've built them. They're great. So we're looking to develop an alternative, you know, housing model and system that would be focused on local sustainable resources. Here in Humboldt County and Arcata, we have the tradesmen, we have the timber, we have all the resources here. So I would propose and just offering up some kind of public-private relationship, you know, asking for support, not necessarily ARPA funds, but just proposing a relationship that would allow us to get over and through some of our housing challenges, because what's coming down the pipe is a lot more extreme with our economy the way it is and housing the way it is. Our housing stock's outdated and we need to do something. So thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any more in-person comments? All right, let's move to Zoom.
Okay, we have one, well, we might have more, one so far. Colin, go ahead.
Good evening again, this is Colin Fisk with CRTP. I do want to talk about that $500,000 that was pledged from the ARPA funding back in 2021, and you know, not to belabor the point too much, but as has been discussed, the ARPA funding has very few strings attached, really, and at this point looks like will be sort of blended into the general fund for continuing expenditures. So I think the way that that I think we view that pledge of $500,000 was a pledge of essentially discretionary funding. And I think it's really great that the city found additional dedicated funding for some of those specific projects and didn't need to spend the discretionary funds. But as you all know, the need for funding for climate programs and projects is enormous, and we do still think that the city should, follow up on that pledge to spend the discretionary dollars that it has, and if some of those discretionary dollars were freed up by finding outside dedicated funding for the battery project or energy efficiency work, wonderful. There's plenty of other important climate programs that the discretionary dollars can be spent on. One thing that comes to mind immediately is, and which has been discussed for several years, is a climate action staff person who could then help to bring in additional dedicated funding for climate programs. So I just wanted to, and not belabor the point too much, but to say that we do hope the city will follow through on additional discretionary funding dedicated to climate action. Thank you.
Thanks, Colin. Do you have anybody else?
No more online public comment.
Okay. Just to reiterate, the climate, because from what I understood, we had that $500,000, we got a grant, so we ended up spending $1 million, so am I like on the right track here with what?
All of those emails came through today, so we just looked at kind of gross numbers of what we were spending to complete the projects. Specifically, how much of that is going to be detailed out as ARPA versus grant versus other general fund dollars that just went through those projects would be a little bit more detailed analysis. I can promise you that it's not 500 full thousand of ARPA dollars, just by looking at the numbers and pulling out the big projects that I know are grant funded. In that, but I think in looking at like the large community center energy efficiency upgrade project, it didn't make sense to only use that funding source for part of the project and working through that. So it's just trying to leverage the ARPA dollars that we had to get as much as we could. But
Sure.
yeah, absolutely, we can review that.
And to be clear, like, if there's nothing that we have, like, it has to be like spent by, and that's 5 months sounds like a really short time. So even if there were things we wanted to do, it's not necessary that it would be spent by December. So this is a wise thing.
Well, and I think that's why you see, our projected for 24, 25, this last column that's on the screen, when Tabitha and I cringe a little bit about, are you going to have any money left? It's like, well, we think all of that will be spent, given our spending patterns right now today, but things change between now and June 30th. So how that fiscal year, how December 31st, I should say, ends up for her, for the city, there could be a little bit more or a little bit less than that number that you're looking at.
Well, and I think, I think what, just to reiterate what Colin's point is great that you've found other money, but the public is still wanting us to come pretty darn close to spending $500,000 of this money towards projects. And if we've got extra money along the way, great, but let's not substitute that for this. I think that's just what we're hearing loud and clear. So I do want to honor that. That's, that's what we said, so we should do that.
And that there, are coming up, especially as the county is moving forward with the climate action plan, more opportunities to see where to fund those projects, but it will definitely be after, December 31st. And so, I'm comfortable with this swap, but really also seeing clearly within our budget that these projects that we wanted to fund are represented.
And to make another point, I know we are thinking of potentially adding a grants person that could potentially, look for those kind of climate grants as well. So that is definitely something that is out there, so.
Well, I'd just like to take a moment to thank you for coming up with this idea and being able to make sure that we wouldn't lose our ARPA funds because we couldn't allocate them according to the timeline. And thank you very much. And I support the concept, and I don't see us not honoring what we said in our original budget when we were looking at everything.
And we can, what I would suggest, I want to make sure, because you've said it a few times now, that you want to make sure that you see those in your budget in the general fund after essentially we close out the ARPA fund. And what we will do during mid-year is that we will actually do a budget amendment to adopt those budgets in the general fund, and we will set those aside for the projects that, and whether they're continuation or you add to them, that's really the place. But I want to make sure that you understand that they will be segregated. They just will move to the general fund after that point, but there's no reason you can't, and we can't do that.
So what kind of an action, let's see, would you like?
What I would like is the authority to move $269,000 that is currently budgeted for projects in your ARPA fund to the staffing line items for the police department, and that will allow me to reallocate those. And then also I will expedite the police staffing that you already have in the ARPA fund and make sure we spend those prior, before or on December 31st of 2024 instead of through the full year and into the next year. So I'm asking for a budget amendment of $269,000 from projects. And I think I've got all the accounts actually outlined in the staff report. You don't need to go through them, but I did those for my own purposes, so I knew, but that's what I'm asking for.
Okay, so you've written something down, Rhea. I don't know.
Here,
but I would move for that.
It's right, it's right.
Or I could read exactly what it says. It's recommend the council, well, maybe not. Let's see. You go ahead, Stacy, and make it. I'll say.
Do you want Rhea to try to read that back?
So I move to direct staff to reallocate $269,000 for fiscal year 2024-25 budget from the ARPA Fund 224 projects to police department staffing in the ARPA Fund 224.
That is
Second.
wonderful, thank you.
Okay, we got a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, motion passes. Does anybody need a break before we move on? All right, so item B is to receive an update on the US 101 and Sunset Avenue Interchange Improvement Project and provide direction as appropriate. And can we have a staff report from City Engineer?
Good evening, council, members of the public. This is the day of update today, so lots of updates. Let me get my slides here. Already don't have a lot of slides, but so this is the follow-up from our prior meeting in June. When we came here, that was an award of contract for final design. At that meeting, we received multiple comments from member of the public. Mainly, there were I would say 3 or 4 comments. Those comments were based on the layout that we had at that time. This is the layout based on our initial concept for the roundabout at the Sunset and Elkwood intersections. The comment that we received was, the first one is, this is the slip lane. Slip lane is an extra lane provided beyond the roundabout lanes. The reason we are providing slip lane here is because the amount of traffic in future, it could back up on Highway 101, and we want to avoid that. So that's why we are letting this traffic from Sunset go on Edge Street this way. So that will have less congestion on roundabout, and there will be a free flow in the roundabout, and it will not back up the queuing to 101. So one of the comment was to please get rid of the slip lane because people may tend to go fast and there's a crosswalk, so eliminate that. So that was one of the comment. Second comment was, can we make the crosswalks wider and maybe have a raised crosswalk? Third comment was, in this plan, most of the sidewalks here provided are 10 foot wide, 10 to 11 feet wide. Because of the Cal Poly on this side, student population, and a lot of people using bicycles and pedestrian walking, 12 foot may not be sufficient. So maybe can we make that wider? So those were the main comments that we received at the time. In response to that, what we did is here. We were not able to get rid of the slip lane for the same reason, because we don't want to back up traffic on 101 and Caltrans, and most of the project is in Caltrans right away, so we have to work with them, and they do not want vehicles backing up on 101. So we are not able to eliminate the slip lane, still there. However, the crosswalks are wider here now, and they are raised crosswalk. Plus, they will also have pedestrian actuated rapid flashing signs so people could push it. Currently, right now, we are just in the 30% design, so we don't have any audio on those push buttons, but that could be included in future if you want to, and we'll do that during our final design. the response to bicycles and pedestrian condition on sidewalk, which is still a wider sidewalk, the response to that was we added a separate Class 4 bicycle lane that will connect our Class 1 Humboldt Bay Trail to the roundabout. And this is like a 10-foot wide Class 4 only bicycle lane in black color here, which will take only for bicycle, which will take bicyclists all along here to the Cal Poly campus. And that does not replace the walkway. Still, we are proposing 10-foot wide walkway, which will also connect our Bay Trail here, and people will be able to walk here, along here to the Cal Poly campus. Definitely not all the bicyclists want to be inside the roundabout, so I'll just maybe show you some scenarios here. Person on bicycle coming from Sunset who wants to go to Cal Poly or just want to cross the bridge. If it's an avid bicyclist, they can definitely take the roundabout and be on the roundabout with the traffic, because the traffic is supposed to be slow on the roundabout, so they can take that and go wherever they want to. They have an option to take this Class 1 trail along this path here, same here, and get on this side. Class 4 bicycle only. Person from our G Street coming on bicycle, there's a bike lane here. If they want to, they are an avid, they feel comfortable going to the roundabout, they can be on the street, take the roundabout, they can go in any direction they want. Again, the idea is the speed is slow on the roundabout, so they should be able to do that. If they don't feel comfortable, there is a ramp here, and this is a 10-foot wide, you can call it Class 1 trail, it's a concrete. They can go here and take Class 4 path to go to this side or this side. Similarly, on this leg, on LK Wood, the same scenario here. Personally, if they feel comfortable, they can take the roundabout. They have an option to jump on the walkway, which is wider, avoid the roundabout, and can jump back. Similarly, going southbound, the same concept. Bicyclists can be on the roundabout, or they can take this path and cross here and be on this wider walkway or Class 1 trail and take Class 4 or continue here. So these, right now we are on 30% design concept, so this is response to those comments. So we just wanted to give you a brief update on this one. So this is it. Please feel free to ask questions if you have. We have responded to those comments. The only thing we could not address is the slip lane. So with that, I'll just maybe give you this is our current schedule right now as we planned. We are in the preliminary design phase. We are moving towards our final design, for which we have already secured the funding. We are seeking funding for construction. We don't have a secure funding yet. We will be doing that. Once our design is up to 50 or 60%, we will have a public meeting in early 2025, and that will be presented at TSC or the City Council sometime in mid-2025 before we go to the final design. And then if we get the funding, most probably, we have to get funding for construction. We will be doing construction in 26, 27. That's the plan. So with that, I'll take some questions. The reason I'm here because I said we will be here in June when I came, so I'm here to answer questions. So,
Netra, will you go back to the picture? So what's happening coming from H Street and like getting on and off the freeway, on that side? And so what's happening with the on and off ramps there? I'm kind of more the left one. I'm just
here
trying to conceptualize, because especially if you are a bike, is there a way to go that way? Because I guess bikes don't really go that way currently, because it is literally a freeway on-ramp, but it looks like we're getting some sort of maybe bike lane there, and so what's happening with that?
Currently, we are not planning that, not bike lane on this. So H Street here, this portion, as a part of this project, we will be eliminating this. So there will be no vehicles coming from H Street to this part. This will be eliminated, this hatch line here.
You know how there's kind of two lanes that come in, and then you're trying to figure out where do I have to get over? So the proposal is to funnel that down into one lane before that point of confusion.
So no more weaving here in this area.
So, first of all, thank you for the changes. I mean, when you look at that, class 4 bikeway across there, considering what it looks like now, and on this, that's amazing. So thank you for doing that. But, you know, it's never enough. We're always pushing for more. So question is on when you were talking about like the entering from H Street coming up or over on the Cal Poly side, you talked about like getting up on the sidewalk as part of that path. And the last time when we spoke about this, I was the one that was like, oh, well, they can just share the sidewalk. And everybody else was like, no, not a good idea. And I get that now. And so after seeing this, I mean, this is one of the busiest parts of town, I assume, for bicyclists and pedestrians because of Cal Poly. So still, we've got two sections where we could have a significant, even though the sidewalks are wide, people riding bikes up on the sidewalk, which isn't ideal for bicyclists or the people on the sidewalk. If that's all we can do, that's all we can do. But is there any space that we could do a little bit better in there?
Let me start by saying it's not a sidewalk, it's a class 1 trail, which is no different than what we have here on Upper Humboldt Bay Trail North, which is 10 foot wide. So yes, definitely this is concrete and we could call it a sidewalk, but it is a wider class 1 trail, you can call it. So it is sufficient for, I would not encourage like all the bicyclists to be on this one, particularly this sidewalk, but it is wide enough so if somebody who does not feel comfortable going through the roundabout, they can just use this part just to avoid the roundabout. The person who wants to cross, they have a class 4 all the way from here to cross.
I'm going to open up for public comment. If anybody has public comment, come on up. Are looking for public comment on the US 101 and Sunset Interchange. All right, do we have anybody on Zoom?
My name's Joanne McGarry, and I just wanted to say all of this is being designed, and it's for multi-uses, pedestrians, bicycles, other things, and cars. And we talked about the climate, and I just think that the future for Arcata is really discouraging individual car traffic and promoting other ways to get around our town. So this is great because it's going to be safer and stuff, but we've really got to stop giving cars the #1 priority and giving, our environment the consideration. So, I'm supportive, and I don't know a whole lot about a lot of these engineering type design things, but let's get people out of our cars so that we aren't going to have to need slipways because things will be backing up. We're going to have a future in Arcata where a car is a rare thing, hopefully, to see. Thanks.
All right, we have one commenter. Colin, go ahead.
Hello again, Colin Fisk with CRTP. I do want to start by thanking the city for taking those comments last time into account, and particularly for separating out the bike and pedestrian facilities across the overpass and on the south side of the 2 roundabouts. However, it does seem pretty problematic that the only way to access that separated bike facility would be either mixing with traffic, which we know that the vast majority of potential cyclists don't feel comfortable doing, or riding on what with all due respect is essentially a sidewalk, which is also something that is not ideal and for either the pedestrians or the bicyclists. I think if we're going to call those other facilities class 1 trails, they should be striped with lanes and have the other amenities of a class 1 trail. But as it stands, it doesn't seem that would be the case. And so, and additionally, really a class 1 trail in such a busy area with so many bicyclists and pedestrians, we think is not sufficient. So we really would encourage you to, continue that separation that you have added around the other legs of the roundabout to the extent possible. And additionally, to make sure that there are connections. So one thing that's concerning about this is that it appears that, existing bike lanes on LK Wood and on H Street have been removed in favor of this sort of mixed facility there. And it really would be great to see those bike lanes at least, maintained and connections to the new separated bike facilities provided. Also, we'll just say again that we object to the slip lanes, and if Caltrans insists on them, then I guess the city has to live with that. But they're dangerous for bikes and pedestrians, and the only reason for them existing is to relieve congestion. And we've said over and over again that safety should be a higher priority than that. So we do object to the slip lanes. And really also glad to see upgrades to the safety crossings, and hope that the lessons learned from recent trainings on roundabout safety for folks with disabilities will be incorporated into those crossings as well. Thank you.
Thanks, Colin, and I did see Netra and Karen both taking notes on that comment, so. Anybody else have any other, what do you need from us?
No, this was just an update. If you have any suggestions, I've heard some suggestions. We will go back to not the drawing board, but we will see how we can make it better as we are moving forward with the design. The only one piece that I forgot to mention is we have worked with HTA, and we have a potential for future bus stop here and here, which was not originally part of the project, but we were able to add that. So just to have less car and maybe more transit-oriented intersection or the roundabout, so we have incorporated those here.
So I'm glad to hear that you say that, because I was just wondering about the feasibility, because we're going to have buses that are going to be going over to one side and coming back to the other. And we also, so that's going to be much easier for the buses to maneuver with, because our buses are longer than the ones we started out with in Arcata.
Yes, and they will be designed for that, the longer buses.
Okay, thank you.
And I just want to add, because I guess, the action is to provide direction, but, to Stacy's comment earlier and then to Colin's comment on Zoom there, I would like to see exploration of either separating those facilities, or I think, just striping it like a true Class 1 trail, and also seeing, opportunities for, where that pathway is kind of right up against the roadway, some sort of barriers or separation, whether that be, the little picket things or median or whatever, curb, whatever that would look like. But some sort of, if it's going to stay as that Class 1 trail, if we don't have the room to expand and add a sidewalk additionally to make sure that truly is also, separated from the roadway, both for, cyclists, but mostly, pedestrian safety as well.
So, do you think it's possible, or are you sitting there? Is your head ready to explode? Or is it possible, or are we just out of space? You can be, it's okay. Like, we're very straightforward. So, like, if we're out of space, we're out of space. But
definitely, I think you already spoke about that. Yes, definitely, we are out of space, and as you know, with anything that we do on the street right away, it's a trade-off. For example, there's a parking here. Parking versus bike lane or Class 4 bike lane. I think that's a decision we have to make at some point. Definitely people who have business here, with Open Door or any facilities, people who live here, Ballpark, Cal Poly students, they use this for parking, they use this for parking. So it is a trade-off, and it's up to us how we maneuver through those trade-offs. That's what I would say. So yes, I would say at some location there is potential, but there will be trade-off to eliminate parking and adding bicycle facility. If that's the direction we want to go, we can explore that. But it is a trade-off, and we have a limited right-of-way, with any street projects.
All right, well, thank you so much for that. All right.
So I know Kimberly's not here, but she did address the slip lane, and she talked a lot about that. So I'm assuming her concerns were taken care of. That slip lane that comes off of
No,
We still have the slip lane, but the other improvements hopefully will, to some small degree, maybe compensate for the slip lane.
Okay, thank you.
Can we keep moving, or we need a break? All right, let's move on to new business. This is to approve an additional budget appropriation in fiscal year 24-25 of $270,000 from unreserved general fund balance and $200,000 from open space, parks and trails special tax fund balance, award a construction contract for the Arcata Ballpark Improvement Project to Hooven and Company Incorporated in the amount of $1,585,146.50. Authorize the city engineer to increase the contract amount by up to $63,405.86, 4%, for a total of $1,648,552.36, and authorize the city manager to execute all applicable documents. And can we have a staff report from Environmental Services Director Emily Sinkhorn?
Great. Well, good evening, Council. I'm glad to be here with an update and recommendation to award a construction contract for the Arcata Ballpark Improvement Project. This has been a priority project of the council, of the community, of the Humboldt Crabs baseball organization for several years. And as probably many in this room, out there listening to council, Arcata residents and visitors probably really enjoyed the 2024 crab season. And this is a public space that's really iconic and also draws people to downtown and other downtown businesses. So it's been a priority, for a while. It's also a really aging piece of infrastructure, iconic and exciting that it's been there since before the highway right behind it. But it also means there's significant improvements to be made. Renovations have happened over the decades since it was constructed. The city did a master planning process in 2017. We've done bleacher renovations and a new scoreboard last year. These are projects that have happened bit by bit as the city has funding. We had a real opportunity several years ago when Senator McGuire approached the city and the Crabs about making further improvements to the ballpark because he really saw it kind of in the heart of downtown Arcata, this important infrastructure. So he was able to secure $1 million of a budget allocation from the state's budget. And since that time of award, the city has been working on the final designs and getting the project out for bid. The three main priorities of the improvement project are to replace the aging facade, both for structural integrity reasons and also to really enhance the placemaking of the ballpark and connect more to downtown. Also to open up the entryway to be even more welcoming and accessible from the surrounding neighborhood, and then to make accessibility improvements to the family-friendly left field line. So those are the three priorities. The city staff worked with our design consultants, SHN and Dillingham and Associates, engaged with our Parks and Rec Committee and the community on priorities and for the facade in particular, and came to a design, put out construction bid documents on July 3rd. We received bids back, and we received two bids, and both were over 50% over our engineer's estimate for the project. We had planned for in this current fiscal year budget for a project to come in, anywhere of 1.1, a little bit more than that, million. And so we had planned budget for that with funding that includes the budget allocation from Senator McGuire, a $100,000 pledge from the Humboldt Crabs organization, as well as other parks and recreation specific funding to get to that point. But as staff, we noted that there was a budget gap between what we had budgeted this fiscal year and where the bids came in at. We considered just the options for when bids come in high and we don't have that much budget available. One of the options is to change up the project slightly and rebid for construction bids. Given the tight timeline for construction and expectations of the community, the city, and the crabs to have this construction happen before the next spring and the next crab season, we really saw the imperative need to continue with the bids that we received. When you rebid, there's no guarantee that bids are going to be less, and often we have seen they will be even higher. I think many jurisdictions have seen construction costs continue to escalate, and I think that is what we saw in this case. So in order to leverage the state grant from Senator McGuire and to kind of be able to complete this priority project, staff is recommending an additional budget allocation from the general fund of $270,000 from your unreserved general fund balance, and then additional $200,000 of reserves from the open space, parks, trails, special tax fund. So that's the Measure A fund. The Measure A, Open Space, Parks, Trails, Special Tax, we have about $180,000 allocated in this fiscal year's budget for the priority projects that this council adopted with this fiscal year budget. The dedication of $200,000 of reserves from Measure A would not take away from those priority projects, so everything we anticipated to complete from last fiscal year, this fiscal year would still have funding to complete. One of the purposes of passing Measure A in November of 2020 was to be able to have a funding source for unanticipated challenges or opportunities, and at the staff level, we feel this is consistent with that purpose, and especially for a priority park project in Arcata. So I'm happy to answer any questions about the recommendations.
You want to go ahead? I don't know. I feel like as somebody that the crabs are like basically my personality during the summer. So I've been to probably 20 games this year. We're in a different league now, so we're attracting a lot of visitors from, I've seen so many people that are coming from visiting teams from Medford, from Healdsburg, from, the Bay Area, and they're all like coming to the ballpark, they're eating downtown, they're spending money downtown, and, everybody, and it's definitely, it was a priority project from Senator McGuire, and, I don't know, people are asking, when is it going to get done? Like, I feel like every time I'm at a game, I have at least 10 people ask me, all right, so when is it coming? When is it coming? And I do agree that if we go out to rebid, it'll probably come in even more expensive. We'll have to wait probably another year because there's a limited time to do this project. So, yeah.
I mean, if I thought we would save money by going out to bid, I would, even if it cost us a year, I would say sure, but prices are only going up at this point. So I do support moving forward, and I know we're already over budget, but I think that we should definitely look at a higher fence in the outfield. I mean, we all, we saw what happened, the car getting hit with the ball, and I just think we have to do that. We need to explore that. So that's the only thing I'd like to add.
Yeah, and I would like to, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Well, and just to that, to kind of explore options to work with Caltrans on that, because as was said before, that ballpark has been there longer than the highway. And so, it's their highway. They put it there. So let's, work with them and try to work together and see if they have, any funding available for that as well. Because, the crabs are only getting better at baseball. So they're hitting the ball further and it's going out into the highway. And so, I think, and also as you said, we're playing in a different league now. We're bringing in teams that are of a higher caliber as well. And I do see that is probably going to continue to happen if we don't, do something about just increasing the level of the netting. So.
Yeah, and I would be interested in, anecdotally getting some data from the Crabs Board about how many times, if there have been accidents, from foul balls going one direction and how many cars they're hitting, and, just conversation around like liability. And that's definitely a different topic, but that is something that definitely piqued my interest more this year.
That's one reason the fire department has their windows protected. Over the years, they've had foul balls hit them, and people that are concerned about their windshields really don't want to park that close to the ballpark, I would say. But I think we're really fortunate to still have the Crabs and have them coming. And if we think we need to spend some additional funds on the fence or so forth, and we're going to be, and we've sort of allocated what we thought maybe Baton Rouge would do this year, and maybe we want to redirect those funds and have them go into something that needs to be done at the ball field. It's just a different thought. Baton Rouge would probably happen in May, just before the Crabs happen. That's baseball and drag, and it happened in 2000, I don't know what, 10, 12. We did it twice, and it was very beneficial in finishing the Ridge Trail, and that's what the allocation was for. So with that, I would move to approve an additional budget appropriation for fiscal year 2024-25 of $270,000 from the unreserved general fund and $200,000 from the open space, parks and trails special tax fund, and award a construction contract for Arcata Ballpark improvement project to Hooven and Company, Inc. in the amount of $1,585,846.50, and authorize the city engineer to increase the contract by up to $63,405.86. And that's 4% of the total, and authorize the city manager to execute all applicable documents for that.
Thanks for that motion, but before we move any further, let's take some public comment.
I'm going to second it, though, because we can still have a motion and a second on the table.
All right,
We
with
still
the
can have public
I'm
comment.
going to second
let's have
that.
Motion. They can
Fantastic.
still have public comment.
Yeah.
And if we want to change something, we can
Good point.
rescind everything and
All
start
right.
over.
Hello, my name's Joanne McGarry, and I remember when that big, huge check was out there on the pitcher's mound, and everybody was, I think Stacy was the mayor at the time, and I was excited. The facade is awful. Subsequently, I've learned a lot of other things that could be done and have been done to improve the ball field, and its historic significance for Arcata is wonderful. Again, we talk about cars and cars being damaged and stuff, and maybe we need to start thinking about different ways for people to get to the ballpark, and I don't know how we can solve the highway problem. The one other thing I noticed when I went to the one game that actually Senator McGuire was at is the Crabs are not doing a great job about keeping trash cans emptier, and the waste is pretty disappointing. We got a professional ball team. We got people enjoying them, but, we can't just have people keep throwing things away like they are. And so this has nothing really to do with this topic, but I just felt I wanted to say that because we get a lot of money for facades. And when we're talking about the meat of the matter of, practices within the facade and within the ball field and stuff, we need to improve that too.
Thank you.
Good evening. It'd be nice to see a picture of it. The last time I vaguely, like months and months ago, it was sort of options 1, 2, 3, and so I don't really even know what it looks like. But as far as what I saw in the past, it was probably maybe a little bit of a design critic here, that it looked kind of static and sort of like your typical government kind of project where it was just a taller, wider version of the facade that's already there. I mean, that's my personal, what I recall. I mean, it'd be nice, but I'm sure there's not a budget for it. Something like more on the facade, like a vertical garden. You know, I've seen some of those on ballparks, you know, different places of the world, and that's kind of catering to sort of the more of the Arcata vibe. It's just a little kind of static and plain, what I recall. So that's not going to happen, but I mean, I just think in the future we should like try a little harder to do something different and exciting so people walk by and it has more of the wow factor, and instead of just getting the job done. Thanks.
Thank you. Online comments? I will say that I was at Wrigley Field last week, one day, and then at the Crabs game the next day, and there's no place that I'd rather be than Crabs ballpark. So we have a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye. All right, motion passes.
And maybe we could copy Wrigley and get some living wall on the back, get some ivy or something.
And people coming up and down the bleachers with hot dogs. Okay. Oral and written communications. The City Council values your comments. The public comment period allows people to address the council on matters not on the agenda. Speakers will be limited to 3 minutes each. Please know that pursuant to the Brown Act, the council cannot discuss or take actions on items not listed on the agenda. The council may respond to statements. If you are in person wanting to give public comment, please line up at the podium. Please raise your hand if you are on Zoom webinar, or press star 9 now if you are on the phone line and when you would like to make public comment.
Hi, my name's Joanne McGarry. I brought my earth flag. Again, hey, let's, since we can't put the earth flag, or you've decided we can't put the earth flag on the top of the flagpole like the voters wanted, let's put the earth flag next to here, so I don't have to bring this every time to remind you that the voters and the people of our community really care about the earth. And, you know, hopefully this climate action plan will come about, but before that even manifests into some written document or something, we all know what we can do. And maybe putting those banners up next to the Cal Poly banners on the lamppost is something we can do as people, you know, think, oh yeah, okay, you know, and I've talked a lot about cars, I've talked a lot about trash. You know, we really need to do some better things. Also, I was watching a lot of old videos because I'm going to talk about this in my third thing, but when we're watching, or you're watching from home, you know, I'm talking and all you see is me. And we were able to get the cameras to have you and me at the same time being viewed. And that was a really wholesome and important thing, because we were discussing a really important matter, and it was important to a lot of us so that people watching and listening in could see how you were reacting to what people were saying here. So I would like to suggest that we go back to that format on the screen and the videos of having, I don't need to take up the whole screen, you know, my podium's small, and you guys can be seen listening to me, and however you want to respond or look, you know, I think it's important for the voters of our community to see how their representatives are reacting to what the public is saying. So that's the third thing, and that brings me to a thing I mentioned in my email to you a couple of weeks ago, or 3 weeks ago or something, about the previous ceasefire resolution that we all saw passed unanimously by you all city council members on March 6th. Discussion was made about how things should be said and things should be included, and language and words. Some of the suggestions that came from this podium by people who spoke in and others who called in and probably have written in was the concept of no more funding by the United States of the State of Israel while it's currently involved in a very internationally challenging conflict, and the complicity that many people feel about our tax dollars going to that. So I'm proposing that we consider a new resolution that will say that the city of Arcata would like to not have our federal government giving money to a conflict that is causing great harm
Thank you,
to
Joanne.
humanity. Okay.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, yeah, I
That was
ran
your
out of
time.
time. Okay, that was
Yeah.
weird.
Just,
She stopped it before.
yeah.
One second.
Earlier today, I sent you an article on the Hellcat from Seattle. I don't know whether you all read that, but it was actually probably the third installment because there were two older ones that I had saved in the past, along with another article, why is it so deadly to drive in America? And I didn't send it to you for months and months ago because I basically was feeling at the time, why bother? Nothing really changes because of all what my over 2.5 years of talking about the subject from the standpoint of whether it's the muffler noise or different observations as far as why we have a lot of cars that seem to get flipped over, and kind of even recently on 6 and K when I was going for a walk not too long ago. But I kind of think the interesting part sometimes of reading these articles is the comment sections from folks from the New York Times, and here's Seattle actually trying to do something about this individual that's, kind of terrorizing everyone from their sleep. And this person was saying, wow, if they can't even solve this problem, then what about all the other problems that we have in the city? If they can't get this done and get it accomplished, then we're just basically in a really bad state. And that's kind of how I'm feeling, from the standpoint here. It's even worse because we're not even trying, they're trying. And I guess I have to say that it kind of hit me more last week than anything because I decided to run for city council. And so I went in there and I had to do the oath that I'm going to uphold the laws of the state of California. And I was just kind of like, wow, that's what I've been trying to do for like 2.5 years. And I think I remember actually when some of you just got on the council that I said, didn't you have to take an oath? So I'm a little confused about all that. I mean, maybe Karen should talk to the attorney because I'm a little confused, like, I don't know that I'm going to get on the council. It's probably a long shot, but, it shouldn't really matter that whether I'm there or I'm there, it should be taken care of. And I have to say, it was a little disappointing the last time the police chief was up here. Same deal. He had his paperwork. And Meredith did ask him about the noise. And I'll have to say he was quite a little performance artist from the standpoint, because I had given him a heads up on it. It wasn't like cold turkey. He was just getting this out of the blue. And for him to say, oh, I'm not sure about the laws in Arcata. There is a noise ordinance, but he missed the whole state of California. So that's his job to know the law, and so somehow it has to be worked out. But I have to say, I'm just really disappointed in everybody at this time.
Thank you. Is there anybody online? All right, well, let's confirm that August 21st, 2024 to be the next city council meeting that I will not be at. Hold on. You don't think you're going to get away that easy. I made it through the meeting without crying, but we cannot let this meeting pass without acknowledging how much you have meant to our community, how much you have meant to all of us. I know that, for me personally, I have just learned a lot about just showing up and being present. I remember sitting next to you during some of the toughest conversations that I've had in my life, and just looking over and seeing your calm presence, convinced me to stay on the council at one point because just watching the way you handle things, watching the way you interact with the community, your depth of knowledge, your caring. I just wish you all the best in your retirement. You deserve everything and on behalf of us, thank you. And we will adjourn in your honor tonight.